Hi, I'm Ashish Mathur. Welcome to a short video on the practical usage of Microsoft Power Query and PowerPivot. I'd like to show you how you can do a competitor and a feature analysis using these two tools. For other MS Excel solutions, you may visit my website ashishmathur.com. Okay, so let me just first explain to you as to what exactly the data looks like and what result am I expecting from that data set. So I have four tables as you can see in this workbook, table 1, 2, 3 and table 4. On table 1, I have a simple matrix like data layout where column A lists down all the features that my products have, which segment does that feature belong to, who my customers are, and in each of the cells of the matrix, I have either a X or a 1 or a 0. So an X indicates that the feature is already implemented, 1 indicates that the feature is relevant, and 0 indicates that the feature is not relevant. Now I have another table over here wherein I have competitor in column A. I have customer and country in the column labels. So that's customer one the customer one appears twice over because it's in two different countries, country one and country two. Likewise, customer two, country one, country two. And I have zeros or ones in the matrix, in the cells of that matrix. Now, a zero indicates, as if I scroll down below, a competitor is relevant in region, and a zero indicates that a competitor is not relevant in the region. There's a table 3 over there which has features down column A, competitors over here as column headings, and once again a 1 or a 0 indicating that the customer has that particular USP, and 0 indicates the competitor does not have that USP. Last but not least, a table that shows me what's the feature benefit calculation for each of the features. So for all features from 1 to 20, that's how the feature benefit calculation would happen. Now, the objective is to actually create a pivot table whereby I can actually go and make in the slicer selections for countries, customers, segments, and I'd like to only see data for cases where the competitor is relevant. So in the filter drop down of the report filter, I've chosen competitor is relevant. In the main pivot table, I'd like to see in the row labels the various features that are offered that are relevant to this country, this customer, this segment, and where the customer competitor is relevant. The narrative for whether the feature is already implemented, relevant or not relevant. So since I'm only interested in seeing those rows where the feature is relevant, I've unchecked feature is not relevant from the filter drop down over here. I want to see the feature benefit calculation in the row labels itself. Along the column labels, I'd like to see competitors, and I want to see a X against where that particular feature is relevant for that competitor, right? So an X over here would indicate that feature 19 is relevant, the calculation of which is this for competitor number 14. A blank indicating that the feature is not relevant at all. Now, using a conventional pivot table, this would be quite difficult to do because the data is split across four different worksheets over here. And in each of these four different worksheets, there is one common column or the other. So I don't have all the data in one place. Just to see as to what's common in all these four worksheets, if I go to table 4, there's a feature column over here, and here too there's a feature column. So I can connect these two tables somehow. Then assuming that I've been able to connect table 3 and 4 to get feature, competitor, and formula for feature benefit calculation in one single database, what I then have to do is see as to what's the connection between that bridge table and table 2 over here. So in table 2, you can see competitor, customer, and country. So since we actually have competitor, we will have competitor in the bridge table 1, we'll be able to we'll be able to connect bridge table 1 to table 2 on the competitor field. And last but not least, we'll then have to combine this bridge table 2 with the table 1 over here, where I'll have two common columns to consolidate based on the feature column and the customer column. So I've actually, based on these connecting columns that I have in all the four tables, I've created one master database, and from where I've then created this pivot table. So the entire process to do all this is something like this. So I go close this file over here, and So let's just get started off with a clean slate. So first and foremost, there's a table one over here, which I'm going to select. I convert this into a table and let me give it a name. Let's call this feature underscore segment. And I go to Power Query. I say Excel data from table, and I first depivot this data set. So I select from here, hold down the shift key, select till here, right click, and I unpivot. So instead of an attribute, let's actually rename this as customers. And since I do not really know as to what the ones and zeros refer to, I'll have to write a formula to indicate this. So just to see as to what the 10 stand for, X is feature is already implemented, feature is relevant is 1, feature is not relevant is 0. I can go to view, advanced, so I can go to add column, I can say add custom column over there, and let's write a formula over here. Let's rename, let's call this narrative, and let's just call this feature narrative. And let's add a formula over here saying if value is equal to x, then feature is already implemented, else if value is equal to 1, then feature is relevant, else feature is not relevant. I close the bracket there. Sorry. So I don't need a closing bracket there because I haven't used any opening bracket else anywhere at all. No syntax errors have been detected, so it looks we're good to go. So just a small spelling mistake. So a value over there and a value here. Um, Looks like we're good to go. So I click on OK and I get errors over there. So let's identify why the error pops up. Um, let's try to identify the error. So I go to View, Custom Editor, and if value is equal to x, then feature is already implemented. Else if value is equal to 1, then feature is relevant. Else feature is not relevant. Can't seem to spot the error there. Any which ways. X10, there's an error that comes up over there. Value was not found. Okay, so let's just take another try at it. Advanced editor there. Value. Um, that seems to be the heading name. So is it case sensitive? I'll just quickly check for that. Yeah, so it looks like that was actually case sensitive, and it now seems to be working. So I have my feature column here, I have segment here, I have customers, I have a value which has a x1 or 1 or a 0, and if the value is an x, I show feature is already implemented, 1 is feature is relevant, 0 is feature is not relevant. Now I'll click on close and load to, and I do not wish to get this data into the worksheet, so I'll only create a connection so far. I need not add this to the data model either. So I'll just leave it at this, click on load. So we have a workbook query created called feature underscore segment. let's do this for table 2 as well. Now in table 2, the slight problem is that I do not have one column for customer and another column for country. I just have them as row labels itself. So in order to actually generate one column for customer and another for country, I'll actually insert a row over here, ensure that I copy the heading here. And here I'll actually combine this, copy this all the way to the right. And so for all practical purposes, this has now become my actual table that I need to work on. I can ignore the first two rows. And just to remember as to what is 1 and 0 there, 1 stands for competitor is relevant in region, 0 is competitor is not relevant in region. So I'll select this data set here. I go to Power Query from table. It is automatically selected the first rows which I did not want. So I adjust the range height over here, which is A3 to K22. I now click on OK, and that's what I come up with. Now, just as in the previous table, so I'll first of all give it a meaningful name. Let's call this competitor, or rather, sorry about this. Why don't I, when converting into a table itself, let me just give it a meaningful name. So I go here and let's call this competitor underscore region. Yeah. And now I go to Power Query. I click on From Table. Now, just as in the previous uh, table that I worked on, I had depivoted. I do the very same here as well. So I select this portion, select it over here, right click, and I unpivot my columns. Now on unpivoting, I've got customer colon country 1. I can right click. I can now do a split column by delimiter and give my custom delimiter as a colon there. I click on OK, and I now get one column for my customers and that's country. And since ones and zeros once again over here do not quite make a lot of sense, I'll have to go to add column, add a custom column. Let's call this competitor narrative. So here we'll say once again, if be careful with the case sensitivity is equal to 1, then competitor is relevant, else competitor is not relevant, right? Okay, so invalid identifier show error, seems to be some mistake somewhere. If value is equal to 1, then competitor is relevant within double quotation marks, else competitor is not relevant. Okay, invalid identifier somewhere. So is that spelling mistake somewhere? If value is equal to 1, then competitor is relevant. Else, okay, so there's a incorrect bracket. I've used a curly bracket. It should actually be a square bracket. So I click on OK, and I get the competitor narrative here as well. And once again, so I go to close and load. I say close and load to only create a connection, and I do not wish to transfer this to the data model for now. So I click on load. I've got two workbook queries there, feature segment, competitor region. And I then go to table 3 here, and once again I follow a similar process of converting this into a table, and let's call this feature competitor. I head on to Power Query, data from table, I depivot these columns, or let's say unpivot these columns, right click, unpivot, and just to see as to so what are the 1 and 0 over here? I don't quite remember, so I'll have to, before giving a narrative, I'll just have to discard the query and memorize as to what the 1 and 0 is. The 1 stands for competitor has USP, and the 0 is competitor does not have USP. So I select the data set, I go to from table there, um, select all the way till the right click, unpivot my columns, and let's call this competitor. I add a column, add a custom column, and let's say USP narrative, wherein I say if value is equal to 1, then competitor has USP, else competitor does not have USP. Token comma expected. So if, okay, so there's once again an incorrect bracket there. It has to be an opening square bracket. No syntax errors have been detected. Um, Click on OK, and that now comes here in as well. Home, close and load to, only create a connection, load. Okay, now we come to the fourth and the last table over there for the feature benefit calculation, where there's no depivoting to be done because I only have one column. So I simply convert this into a table as well. And feature benefit, I go to Power Query from table, and I have nothing much to do over here except once again go to close and load to and only create connection. So far so good. I have each of these 4 tables created in my workbook queries. Now one more thing to be done is that since if you remember the original file, in the slicer selection, I wanted to see country, customer, and segment. So I'll have to extract each of these into um, different tables so that I can drag them to the slicers as well. So what I could do over here is that I can, if I go to table 4, I have all my features listed over here, but I don't need a slicer for the features, so I need not work on this at all. I need a unique listing of all my competitors. Now all my competitors are listed over here. So what I could do is I can actually select this. I say from table. Um, I select from here till the very end, right click, unpivot. I don't need this in this column, so I can simply go and remove these columns, right click, and I can simply remove duplicates from here to get a unique listing of all my competitors. Let's give it a meaningful name, competitors over here. And competitors here, you can say close and load to, close and load to. Now this I'd like to create a connection for and directly transfer to the data model, which is the Power Pivot. So I click on OK there. I get my unique listing of all my competitors. Um, and now let's actually do the same for the features as well. So just to quickly cross check whether the competitor table shows up correctly. Yeah, so I get a listing of all the competitors. Let's create a similar listing for all the features as well. So I go to from table, and I select from here till the very end here, right click, unpivot. I don't need these two. I remove these columns, right click, I do remove duplicates, and I'm going to call this features here. Simply go close and load to, only create connection, add this to the data model, created one for features as well. So I have it for features, I have it for competitors, country, customer, and segment is what I need it for. Um, so I select this over here once again. Um, sorry, I select this portion over here. I go from table there, select from here till the very end, right click, unpivot. Um, I already have a competitor table. What I need are customers. So right click, I do a split column by delimiter. I go to tab here, colon, enter. I don't need my competitors since I already have them. I don't need this either. Um, for now, I don't need country either. I can simply say customers over here, and let's call this customers here. Close and load to, only create a connection, add to data model. I've got my customers as well. Now comes country and the segment. I select this portion from table once again, select from here till the very end, right click, unpivot, don't need this and this, remove columns, let's split this column by custom, colon, okay, I don't need customers, I need countries, so I right click, rename this to country, country, close and load to, only create a connection, add this to the data model as well. Okay, so I now need it for the customer. Sorry, now need it for the segment. So I go to table one, select this portion. Um, I don't need either of these columns, so I can simply remove them. I can remove this as well. I can right click and say I want to remove duplicates over here. Let's call this segments here, close and load to, only create a connection, add this to the data model, and I'm done. So I just want to once again quickly cross check whether I have indeed removed the duplicates from everywhere. So I get a unique list of A, B, C, D, E, that's what I wanted. If I go to country, I guess I forgot to do the remove duplicates over here. So I can simply go edit this query, right click, I can say remove duplicates, two countries, close and load to. So the 190 figure cuts down to just about 2 rows of data here. I can once again customers too have forgot to remove the duplicates. So I can go to edit. I can right click. I can click on remove duplicates. I have 5 customers, close and load 2. And as regards features, I think I already did a remove duplicates, so I get a listing of only the unique features, and the same is true for competitors as well. So far so good. We've created individual tables. Now what we have to do is start rolling the tables that we did not load into the Power Pivot one into each other. So I want the feature benefit to roll into feature competitor. So that will be bridge table 1. The bridge table 1 has to roll into competitor region. So that will be bridge table 2. And the last step would be to actually roll this into the feature segment table over here. And we'll then transfer that consolidated table into the Power Pivot. So now what I have to do to create to roll one into the other would be I actually go to merge. In merge, I go and select the feature benefit table over here, and here I select the feature competitor table. Now what's common in both these tables is the feature column. So I select this, I hold down the control key, select this as well, and so it says the selection has matched 20 out of the first 20 rows. When I click on OK, I get something like this. Now what I wish to do over here is from the other table, I wish to actually get all the columns except the feature column because that already is over here. I wish to get the competitor value and the USB narrative. So I click on OK over here and I've got all those individual columns. So once again, I've got meaningless headings over here because the word new column has been prefixed to each one of those. I can right click over here. I can say rename and let me just remove the new column bit from the competitor, right click, and I can rename this as well to simply value here, right click, uh, rename, and so from the two tables which I had, one for the USP and other for the feature benefit calculation, I've been able to create just one table out of it showing me the feature name, the formula for feature benefit calculation, the competitor, the value, and the USP narrative. So the value column would now not be important at all because I already have the narrative against it. Nevertheless, let's just let that remain. Let's just call this bridge table 1, which I once again go click on close and load to, and I only want to create a connection. I do not want to transfer this to the data model. So I click on load over here. I have got a bridge table 1 there. Now bridge table 1 needs to be rolled into the competitor region. So I once again go to merge. I go to bridge table 1. I go to competitor region over here. Yeah, and now what's common in both of these is the competitor name. So I select competitor here, hold down the control key, select competitor here as well. The selection has matched 665 out of the first 665 rows, and there is no other common column between the two. So I click on OK there, and I'm from the other table, which all columns do I want? All except the competitor, because that's already here in my column to the left. So I click on OK, and here too I go about the process of actually removing the redundant characters from each of those columns. Right click, I do a rename, remove this from here as well. Right click, rename, okay. So since I already have a value column, I cannot give it the same name. So let me just call this value 1, which once again would really not be required because I already have the narrative against it. So let's call this competitor narrative. This will be bridge table 2, close and load 2 over here, only create a connection, click on load. So I have a bridge table 1, I have a bridge table 2. Now the last thing I have to do is I have to roll over bridge table 2 into the feature segment table over here. So I click on merge, I say bridge table 2 over there, I say feature segment table. So I somehow do not see the feature segment table here. Is it available there? It's not there either. Should have appeared. Okay, let's just go over this once again. I have a feature segment table. Feature is already implemented. Let's just see a preview of this. Feature is already implemented. It shows nothing. Okay, so if I now click on close and load there, I click on merge. I choose a bridge table 2 there. Feature segment now appears over there. So now what's common between the bridge table 2 and feature segment 2 table? Feature for 1. Then I also have over here my customer. So I select this. I select this. I then select this and I select this. So the selection has matched 6650 out of the first 6650 rows. Click on OK over here, and I got most of it. All I now need to do is go here and decide which are the columns that I do not need. I do not need the customer column because that's already over here, so I can uncheck the box from here, and I can uncheck the feature box as well because that's appearing to the left of this column. I can uncheck the feature. So I'll get segment, value, and feature narrative. Click on OK there. And once again, let's just go about renaming this to make some sense out of it. Segment, right click, rename, let's call that value 2, right click, rename, let's call that feature narrative. I'm going to call this my final table, and now I will take this data, look, create a connection and transfer this to the data model. Click on load. Okay, now once I've got it till here, what I now need to do is I need to go to the Power Pivot, click on manage, and I get to see the competitor table, the features, customers, countries, segments table, and a final table over here. So I'll just move it to the very beginning, since that would be logical flow. And now I now need to establish a relationship between the final table and each of these individual tables there. So I go here, I go to design, I say create relationship um, with the competitors table, which has just one column. Click on create there. I do the same for features as well. So I go here, create relationship with the features table, which has only one column called feature. I then go to customers here, create relationship, customers, same for countries as well. And last but not least for the segment. So I go there, segment. Just to verify that all the relationships are active, I actually go to manage relationships, all are active, final table competitor is linked to competitors, feature to features, customers to customers, country to country, segment to segment. Okay, now that we have all this running, we now need to create a pivot table from this. So I now go to home, pivot table over here. I want the pivot table onto a new worksheet, which comes on over here. And let's now construct the pivot table report. So I'm going to first create a slicer for country, customer, and segment. Country, customer, and segment. Right? In the report filter of the pivot table, I'd like to actually show the field of is the customer, is the competitor relevant or not. So in the final table over here, competitor narrative is what I drag to the filter area section, and here I select competitor is relevant. Click on OK there. In the row labels, I'm going to drag my features, which I'll get from the features table that I had created. That's a unique listing of all my features. I then want a narrative for the features. So there should be a feature narrative one over there, which I drag here. And let me just get into the classic pivot table layout so that's easier to read the data. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm only interested in the cases where the feature is either already implemented or it's relevant. So I click on OK there. And we don't need the first column from there. I get rid of it. Let me just place it to the right hand side so that's it. It's easier to navigate inside the pivot table. Now that I'm over here, I don't think I needed subtotal column. I can get rid of that. Okay. And the last but not least, I need the feature benefit calculation formula. So I drag that to the row labels as well. Okay, somehow I can't seem to get that working for now. Okay, yeah, so it's come to the row labels over there. Once again, I got this total row, which I do not need. I get rid of that. And in the column filters, I'm supposed to add the competitor. So I pick up competitors from here, drag that to the column labels. So this creates the basic skeleton structure of my pivot table. Let's just format this a little better so that it's easy to navigate once again. I go to a move pivot table, drag this a few rows below, and put my slicers at the top instead. So I drag my slicers over here. I drag my customer slicer over here and just increase in width to make it occupy lesser height, and do the same thing for segments as well. Likewise, I adjust this a bit as well. Now comes the most important part, that of actually putting in X's against in all the cells where the competitor does have that as a relevant feature. So for that, I've written a formula in the Power Pivot, which you can download and see from the workbook, which I'll be sharing at this link. So this was a fairly lengthy process of actually creating one single table out of individual tables, but that was required in order to arrive at one consolidated pivot table like this. Um, Last step, as I mentioned even earlier, is to actually write a Power Pivot formula against which I put X's that I showed you in my original table. You can see as to what that formula is from the link which I'll share with you in this video itself. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you.